Hey there, today I have an order summary video, and in this video I'm going to break down the auction winnings from Infinity Comics. This is related to the comic book unboxing video, episode 189. So this is sort of the companion piece to that video. That was the one I ranted a little bit about CGC, had a little fun with that, the controversy, and then went on to the unboxing and wanted to go through the details of the order with you, where I'll show you not only what I paid for the books, and by that I mean what was my final bid, but remember I pay tax from HipComic, shipping and so forth. So we'll look at the actual costs for each comic book, and then I've also gone through this entire order and graded each of the books. So you'll also be able to see the actual grades that I assigned, and then I'll talk about some of the decisions that I'm making with these books. But I think the outcome is quite interesting. So let's get to the numbers, and I'll walk you through the results, the comparisons, and then ultimately what I decided to do with these comic books that I won at auction from Infinity Comics. All right, so let me bring in the spreadsheet and we'll start to look at the breakdown of this order. And I keep saying order, I don't really know what to call it. I guess invoice or winnings, just the shipment, the total from Infinity Comics. So I won 15 books at auction on January 26, 2024, with a total of $279.03 invoiced for the comic books that I won. As I mentioned, I'm paying 9.5% tax here in California, plus $15.49 to ship. So when I look at the total cost here in column Z, it's the final bid here in column I. So this is actually what I end up winning the book for, but then my total cost, I like to track that. So you'll see here that if my math is right, if I distribute the shipping across each book and then add in the tax for each one, we have it summed here as $279.03. And I would say that this session that I won books from, I'm mixed on it, and you can see from the totals here, column AA, the raw value add, if I were to do nothing with these books and just look at their raw value, I've added about $73.97 of value. Always nice when that's positive. And then if you look at the CGC value, if I were to get all of these books graded at the grades that I assigned these books here in column S, I am more or less breaking even at a $17 value add. Now, if you're kind of skipping ahead and scanning the books yourselves, I think the big standout is the obvious one that needs to be talked about, and this is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 4. They listed the book as a 6.0, essentially raw in fine condition. I graded it as an 8. Now, when I looked at the book, essentially the major flaws that I found with it was just some rippling towards the bottom left corner on both the front and back, almost like it had been blunted. I don't quite understand because the corner was not blunted or even soft. It was more or less sharp, maybe just slightly rounded, but it almost had that rippling effect as if the book was jammed down on the table. And then a few also creases to the spine, but I didn't see any color breaks. Now, the cover is all white, so it's possible that color breaks really, they don't exist. And it's tough because I look at that and go, great, so that's more or less like a 9.4, right? Well, no, it's not. It's still an 8 unless the book is repaired or improved in some way. And so I gave it the grade that I think that it's in, which is an 8.0. And even in an 8.0, it has a CGC fair market value of $160 for a $35 value add, as I paid $92.02 to acquire that book. It was something that I was targeting from this auction. Out of all the books, roughly 300 per session, this was the one that I thought looked the best, had the most potential, had pressable defects, but was structurally sound. And I feel like, I don't want to jinx it, of course, but in the right hands, I think that it could probably max out at a 9.4. The question that I have on the book, and let me just get it out so you can see it too, and I talked about it in the video, is the fact that it isn't just bright white. It's basically like an off-white, not even an off-white to white. It's just an off-white cover, and I don't know if they'll maybe ding it a little bit and maybe say like tanning on the cover. I'm not exactly sure how it will end up turning out, but if that book were super bright white on the front and back, I feel like it could be a 9.8 candidate, 9.6 at worst, and that's where I'm kind of going with a 9.4. My Strange Tales that also has Nick Fury on the cover with cover art by Steranko, that has foxing on the back, and it got a 9.2. So that's where I'm hopeful that this book could pop at a 9.4. But yeah, if let's just say 9.2 so that it matches the Strange Tales book, then the CGC fair market value here jumps to $465, and then we're really talking here with a $340 CGC value add. Now, I don't want to do that for each book because I think it's a little unfair and misleading. I'm just telling you what I got the book at, what I paid for it, and what I ended up grading the book. You can see on average, all of the books I picked up ended up at about an 8.2, and I think that's pretty consistent with my auction wins from Infinity Comics. Trying to find those books that are in that fine plus all the way up to VF plus, and then looking at the images, looking at the scans, scrutinizing them, and trying to really focus on books that are VFs. Now, not every book got an 8 or above. Uncanny X-Men 144 was the lowest grade at 6.5. I paid $6.23 for that book. I saw that it had a little bit of fair market value raw for $9, so still felt like I was quote unquote getting a deal. And then this column here, PS means that it's been posted for sale, and then I have another column that basically verifies that it is in fact for sale, meaning there's an active eBay listing for the book. And these are the kind of decisions that I'm making. I have several copies of X-Men 144. It's not a key. It's easy to find. And this was one of my lowest graded copies in the mid-grade, 6.5, and just wanted to move on from it. It didn't work out. I missed a pretty significant piece of damage to the bottom left of that book and just didn't want to keep it around. And that's kind of what I'm doing. It's like if I make a mistake, then I take my losses. I try to let the book go for whatever it goes for, and I just try and move on from it. Wonder Woman 212 was also a little bit disappointing in a 7.5. I thought it was going to be better than that. Really tough to see on the image, on the scan of the auction. It's another book with a white cover. I had high hopes for that. I like the cover on that one. That was the one I was talking about that has a lot of emotions from the Justice League members on the cover, and Wonder Woman's upset. Anyway, picked it up for $23.48, which I thought was pretty good. But in a 7.5, it only has a fair market value of 16, so that was a loss of $7.48. Wonder Woman 211, I ended up giving an 8.0, even though it had the damaged corner, kind of the side that was that 100-page square-bound Wonder Woman 211 from 1974. That one's going to be tough because I have to find a presser that's actually going to be willing to work on a book like that. Some pressers say they will not touch square-bound books. They're difficult, they're tricky. The staples are kind of in the middle of the book. They're not on the spine itself. In an 8.0, cover price says it's $45. I paid $20.20, so that's where it's showing up as a huge positive value add here. But in a CGC 8.0, it's only $30. I really don't know how much more that book could be improved, maybe up to an 8.5. But I think with that corner and that edge being what it is, I feel like 8 is a fair grade. Let me jump back to Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and make another comment on the other book that I won, which was number 3. Now, I was targeting Steranko covers, and I put up a bid that I thought was going to hold, which was a little over $30, and it ended up ending at $29, so it cost me $32.79 to pick that one up. Whereas, like, all of my energy was really focused on issue 4, but actually issue 3 came back with a huge raw value add of $56.21, and it ended up grading higher as is than the 4 at an 8.5 and already has $103 of value in a CGC 8.5 with a $38 CGC positive value add. So I think that one's going to work out. Now, it too, I believe, could be pressed. This one, I ended up finding a little bit of creasing here on the front. Again, difficult to really, show up on a scan. I mean, this has now been rebagged, boarded by me with a full back, my BCW Silver Age bag. It looks beautiful, looks gorgeous. It's well centered. I think I'm overselling it and overhyping it, but the other thing, really glossy cover. It's another book that I'm kind of scratching my head, like, why is this there? The thing that I see is, and it's hard for me, I can't tell if this is light on this corner because of the art, or if it had a little bit of color loss, but I feel like this maxes at 9.6, most likely also to be a 9.4. So just so I can show you what the 9.4 value is, I'll flip Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 3 to a 9.4, and it has a CGC fair market value of $410. So not that that one flew under the radar, but it was not my primary focus, and this is where the whole kind of like set it and forget it approach to these bids, it really helps, because I take these values, I plug them in my formulas. Sometimes the projected maximum bid is a big number. This is a very expensive order. This is a big investment that I'm putting into these books, adding, making sure that I'm bidding on the right books. And a lot of times it's scary when I go in the morning of the auction or the day before and I put in that big number, but then lo and behold, it's stuck. And I forget what my actual maximum bid, like I said, it was a little bit over $30 and nobody outbid me, and I ended up getting it for 29. I start to think of like, what would I do at a convention, right? So like how, and maybe I'll wrap this up and then I'll kind of give you my perspective, or tell this story a little bit. But overall, as far as the numbers go, like I said, I'm mixed. I think that if we're taking these two books out of the equation, the two Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. books, then I think it's kind of a mediocre winning. I mean, you're looking at taking $120 off. So now I'm spending around $150, $155 for the rest of the books. None of the others are really that great. I was really disappointed. Long Shot number 1, I thought that was a 9. I gave it an 8.5. I think it can be pressed. It's not as great as I thought, and also the value isn't there. And 8.5, you can get it in a slab for $26, which is cheaper than it costs to grade the book and ship it back to you. The Ghost Rider books were all listed in VF. Ghost Rider 28 was a VF minus. They all kind of held up after I graded them, got them back. Lots of creasing and so forth on those. I think the last book I'll talk about here, Captain Marvel 39 at a VF minus. That one actually ended up being pretty good. Some pressable defects in there. I probably will end up submitting that to one of my pressers to clean up, as even in an 8.0, it has a CGC value of $53. I think that one can get maybe a 9.2. Anytime I'm talking about these books from the 70s, whether it's Silver Age, early Bronze, and we start getting into the 9s, early 9, 9.2, or maybe 8.5, but really once you get to a 9.0 and above, those are great grades for the age of those books. We're talking about books from 40 and 50 and sometimes even 60 years ago, and to have them, get a near mint minus, I think we're in good shape. It's good territory to be in. And I think that some of these 8s could definitely get the bump up into the 9s. Unfortunately, just the Ghost Rider books are not that desirable and collectible. Of course, in a 9.8, they're very collectible. But in that sort of 8.5 to even 9.2, I can show you an example here. Like, let's take Ghost Rider 63. That was the one that had the cool skull in the background here. I love this cover. Love having it. Paid about $10 for it. I gave it an 8.0. I think it can be pressed, but just a lot of creases and wear along the spine. And, let's just say, okay, it got a couple of grade bumps up to a 9. Then the CGC for market value is still only $20. Like, these books need to be a 9.8 in order to really, be considered a score. And even that book, $98, as the comic book collectible market continues to slide. Part of it is just, I think that Ghost Rider series is just not all that interesting. There's some keys in there. Issue 2 is a key. But these books, I think, easy to find, and you really have to hit that home run with 9.8s or being able to have them improved into a 9.8. Them sitting here in the 8 to 9.2 range, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with them. The thought behind it was I was going to try and put together a full run of Ghost Rider, maybe targeting conditions of 8.0 and above, just because I think it's a series that nobody's really looking at, and, a classic Marvel character, he's probably going to get some interest. It continues to have some relevancy with like stories like the Helverine and the other Ghost Riders, Danny Ketch, and so forth, still being relevant in today's comic book stories. So that's where I thought that might be a good series to target, and Infinity Comics had quite a few of those up for sale. So that's the order summary. We've been staring at the spreadsheet long enough. I just wanted to talk about kind of like my mindset when I think about a book like this, because sometimes this is the book I'm talking about. So this was the one that I won at auction for a final bid of $29. And, everything adds up. This order became very expensive. I said order again, but these these auction wins, the collection of the stack of books that I won at auction became very expensive because they do add up. If you are bidding on multiple books, $5, $10, $20 here, it gets very expensive. I picture myself walking into a convention and circling the floor. And this is a book that's probably going to be up on the wall at some table. Maybe not every table, but there's probably a table that has some Steranko covers, maybe the Incredible Hulk annual, stuff like that. So they kind of want to highlight that this is going to be up on a wall. And what kind of sticker is going to be on this, right? There's going to be some sort of post-it note or some indicator. $60, $70, $75, it'll just say like $75 high grade. And you look at it and you kind of take it off the shelf and you're like, I don't want to take it out of the bag and board. I'm looking at it. Okay, it looks pretty good. Hey, could I give you 60 for it? Would you take 60? And maybe the person's like, yeah, let's do 60 on this. Okay, and then you walk out of there. I mean, I kind of think about like, what would I do? I've got cash in my hand. I'm targeting certain books. That's where if I kind of take a step back and think, I'm actually offering $30 for that book. It's not that bidding on these books makes it seem like it's less. That's not what I'm implying. What I'm thinking about is almost like building up the courage to make the bid. I think that when you're bidding online and you're kind of on your own, you're on your phone or you're at your computer and you're going through this, sometimes even a $30 bid on a book, it just feels like a lot. But when you're kind of maybe surrounded by other collectors and tables and in the moment, there's part of me that almost relies on what the seller has the book listed at. So if they have that book at $75, I'm like, well, it must be more sought after than I thought, or it must be in a higher grade than I'm willing to give it. I'm sort of trusting that this seller, and I'm not thinking about how much did he pay to have a table at the show? What his overhead? How much did he pay to acquire that book? And so I take that into consideration. Again, not to say that you can get books cheaper online, but what I'm saying is that it allows me to muster up the courage to put in that high number in for my maximum final bid. And if I am targeting a book, I just think about what it would be like in person when I've got other people near me. They're looking at the same book. So maybe there's a little competition, just like you're bidding online. And what I found is that when you find the right book and you do want to target it, think about your budget, think about the fair market values, think about what you're going to do with the book. Go ahead and place that bid and try to win the book. And my favorite thing to do is to go ahead and put that bid out there and then step away and then let the dust settle. And if somebody wanted to come in and, pony up and give $50, $60, $70 for Nick Fury 3, they would have beat me at that auction and they would have picked up a really great book. Let me know what you think of these auction wins. Let me know how I did. I do feel like there is some additional attention now being given to some of the Infinity auctions. So if you are bidding, good luck to you. Try not to outbid me. I'm sorry if I outbid you on accident, but it's all in good fun. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.